The kitchen is huge and white, like an operating room. Aya walks in for the first time and freezes. Everything sparkles. The silence is broken only by the quiet hum of the refrigerators. She straightens her clean apron. She was told to cook for only one person, the owner, and for his guests, if any. She was hired on recommendation. They said the pay was very good, but they asked few questions. Aya agreed. She needed money for her dream. She looked at the spice shelves. Everything here was perfectly Korean. Gochugaru, doenjang, soy sauce. She tucked a small bag of her spices into her apron pocket, just in case. The door opens silently. He enters. Aya immediately recognizes it as him. Hansel! He's short, but he holds himself as if he takes up all the space. His dark suit fits him perfectly. His face is calm, like the surface of a lake at night. He looks at her briefly, his gaze quick and appraising. He notices everything. Her braided hair, her clean hands, the way she stands, her head bowed slightly, but not bent. "You're the new chef," he says. His voice is quiet, even, and emotionless. It's not a question. "Yes, my name is Aya. I'll try." He nods once. "The menu is discussed with me. The ingredients are the best. You don't cook for others. Ever. The rules are simple." "I understand. I like cleanliness. And silence!" He glances around the kitchen again, as if checking to see if her presence has already disturbed anything. Then he turns and leaves as silently as he arrived. Aya exhales. She feels a shiver run down her spine. From fear? No. From the realization of the absolute control emanating from this man. A week passes. Aya gets used to the rhythm. Hansel eats at a strictly allotted time. He never praises or complains. He just eats. Sometimes he leaves everything clean. Sometimes he barely touches it. This is her only feedback. Today he ordered twejang jjigae, a spicy soup with soybean paste, a standard dish. Aya cooks. She smells the broth, the vegetables, but something's wrong. The dish is perfect, but soulless. Like himself, her hand instinctively reaches for her pocket. There lies the mixture her grandmother gave her. Somali fenugreek seeds, a special pepper, dried leaves, something warm, deep, smoky. She adds just a little, a pinch, to the simmering soup. The aroma changes. It becomes more complex, warmer. She places a bowl in front of him in the dining room. He sits alone at the large table. He doesn't even look at her. He takes a spoon. Aya returns to the kitchen, but listens. Silence. Then another spoonful. Slowly, and again. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees him bring the bowl closer and inhale the steam. He looks at the contents, stirring slowly. He rings the little bell. Her heart skips a beat. She goes out. "You added something," he says. His eyes are on her now. They are dark and very attentive. "Yes, one secret from my family. If you don't like it, I won't do it again." He's silent for a moment. He looks at the stew. "What is this?" "Spices from Africa. They warm the dish, deepen the flavor." He tastes it again. "It's like cumin, but not quite. And something else. Smoky." He pushes the bowl away. "Interesting. Tomorrow again. But half of this, extra." Aya nods, hiding a smile. It's not a reprimand. It's almost interest. "What's it called?" he asks when she's already taking the bowl. "Spice?" she asks again. "The dishes now," he clarifies. "It has no name. It just became different." He looks at her for a long moment, then looks away. That's the end of the conversation. But Aya leaves with a sense of small victory. She's caught his attention, at least somehow. A few more days pass. Aya works late, preparing sourdough for tomorrow. The kitchen adjoins a huge living room with panoramic windows. The house is quiet. Everyone is already asleep. She thought he had long since gone to his rooms. But as she goes out to dry her hands, she sees him. Hansel stands by the window in complete darkness. Against the city lights, he seems like a silhouette, a shadow. In his hand is a glass of dark liquid. He doesn't move. He simply looks down at the moving headlights of the cars, at the shimmering windows of the skyscrapers. Aya freezes. She's seen him imperious, cold, appraising, but never like this. His shoulders, usually so straight, are now slightly slumped. There's no strength in his posture, only a vast, heavy weariness. Loneliness emanates from him in waves, almost palpable, like the cold from glass. He raises the glass to his lips and takes a small sip. He doesn't savor it. He simply does it, like a ritual, as if it's the only thing that can somehow brighten the silence. She suddenly feels sorry for him. The feeling washes over her unexpectedly and powerfully. He is omnipotent in his world. He has everything. But now, in this empty, dark room, he looks like the most lost man on earth. She steps back into the darkness of the kitchen, trying not to make a sound. Her heart beats fast. She thinks of his strict rules, of his cold eyes. But now she sees something else, a shadow behind him. A shadow he hides from everyone. She returns to her sourdough, but her hands are shaking. She's no longer afraid of him. Now she understands him, and this feeling is far more dangerous than fear. Weeks pass. Aya tries her best. She learns Korean recipes, perfects them. Sometimes she adds a little something of her own, that little pinch. He notices it. Sometimes he asks about the ingredients, but that's all. He's cool and polite, like a smooth wall. There are no marks on it. She cooks him dinner and eats later, alone, in the kitchen. She looks out the window at the same city. She feels the same loneliness as he does. But he has power, money, people. She has only this kitchen and his silent presence in the next room. She wants to reach out. She wants to see something alive in his eyes, something addressed to her personally. Not the interest of a cook, but the interest of a person. But the wall remains a wall. One such quiet night, she takes out her old box. It contains things from home, from her grandmother. There are photographs, a few woven scraps, and small leather bags. She sorts through them, feeling sad. Her fingers stumble upon one, very small and tightly tied. She doesn't remember it. Aya unties the lace. Inside is a dark, fine powder. It smells complex, of flowers, earth, and something sharp and spicy. A folded piece of paper is tied to the bag. The paper is old, almost torn. It has my grandmother's handwriting on it. Aya reads slowly. Grandmother writes in Somali. The powder is called mafiaboss. Binding, Aya whispers to herself. The recipe says, for a closed heart, add a pinch to food or drink. Slowly opens the soul. Awakens good feelings. But remember, if the heart does not truly open by the end of the journey, the connection will break. A void will remain. Use with pure thoughts. Aya sits and looks at the powder. Her heart is pounding. This is stupid. These are fairy tales. But her grandmother's face floats in her memory, her wise eyes, her hands that knew the power of every plant, and Hansel's silhouette by the window floats in her memory, his slumped shoulders. With pure thoughts, she reads again. Her thoughts are not pure. She wants him to look at her. She wants to be more than just a shadow in the kitchen. It's a desperate, selfish desire. It burns within her brighter than any warning. Evening. She's making thang, a clear beef broth. It's light, served at the end of the day. He's especially tired today. She could see it in the pursed look on his lips as he passed by. The broth is ready. It's perfectly clean and fragrant. Aya places the bowl on the table. Her hand is shaking. She looks around. No one. Silence. She takes out a small bag. She opens it. The spice smells strong, unmistakable. She takes the tiniest pinch, as her grandmother advised. Her fingers hover over the steaming broth. This is wrong, a voice inside her tells her. This is a lie. But I want to help him. Is that bad? Another voice argues. You want to help yourself, the first insists. She closes her eyes and drops a pinch into the broth. The powder dissolves instantly, leaving no trace. Only a subtle, warm aroma now mingles with the scent of meat and herbs. Aya feels sick with shame. She just poisoned his trust. Even if not with poison, she looks at the bowl as if it were something dangerous. But it's too late. She carries the broth into the dining room, places it in front of him. She doesn't look him in the eye. Then, she says quietly. He nods without looking, immersed in his papers. Aya runs into the kitchen. She washes an already clean pot, just to keep her hands occupied. She waits, listens. What will happen? Will he get sick? Will he notice the switch? After a while, she hears the sound of a spoon, a normal, calm sound. Then again, he eats. Nothing happens. She creeps to the door and peers in. He finishes his broth. He places the bowl on the table. He wipes his lips with a napkin. His face remains imperturbable. Disappointment mingles with relief. Nothing. It's just dust. An old wives' tale. She almost laughs at her own stupidity, but the laughter catches in her throat. Because she did it anyway. The next evening, she cooks again. A simple stew. She doesn't even think about the bag. She's decided to forget this stupid act. She places the dish in front of him and is about to leave. Aya, he says. His voice makes her stop. He rarely calls her by name. Yes? He looks not at her, but at the stew. He lifts his spoon and tastes it. Then he looks back at the dish. Something seems to be bothering him. Yesterday, he begins. He speaks slowly, choosing his words. In the thane, there was a scent, not like the usual. What was it? Her breath catches. He notices. A scent? She tries to feign incomprehension, but her voice is weak. Yes, not like the usual thanka. Something warm, deep, like the first time you added your spices, but different. He looks up at her. His gaze isn't angry. It's searching, interested. He doesn't ask, what did you put in there? He asks, what was that scent? And this look, this attention directed at her actions, even if secretly, this is what she so wanted. But now, having received it, she feels only ice in her stomach. It's my grandmother, she blurts out. She used to give me a special mixture, for warmth, for good sleep. I added just a little bit. If you don't like it, I won't make it again. He's silent. He looks at her, then back at the stew in front of him. He tastes it. Not today, he states. No, Aya immediately confirms. He nods. Yesterday's was interesting. We can do it again. When I ask. Okay, she says, her voice barely audible. He returns to his food. Aya stands still. He asked for more. He showed interest. Not in her, but in what she had done secretly. Grandmother was right. Mafiaboss works. And now Aya must lie again, and she knows she will, because that glimmer of attention, that turn of his head in her direction, has become more important to her than shame. After that evening, something changes. Hansel doesn't just eat and leave. Sometimes he lingers in the kitchen after dinner, stands at the counter while she washes the dishes, asks her little questions. Are these spices used everywhere in Africa? Just the leaves, or can I have the seeds? Have you been cooking for a long time? His questions still sound like an interrogation, but without the previous coldness. He listens to her answers, nodding. Once he even said, "My grandmother was a good cook too, but she never experimented." It was a personal memory, a tiny but personal one. Aya feels joy. Her heart sings when he walks into the kitchen. She laughs at his rare, dry remarks. She catches his gaze and sees in him not a boss, but a person. She thinks, it's working. He's getting closer. But at night, alone in her room, guilt overwhelms her. It's a lie. He reveals himself not to her, but to what she slipped into his food. Her joy is false, bought with a bag of powder. Sometimes she wants to tell him everything, but then she remembers how he stood by the window, or how today he almost smiled, trying a new sauce, and she remains silent, clinging to this dangerous closeness. One afternoon, while she was chopping vegetables, some people came into the house, not ordinary guests, quiet, serious men in dark clothes. They ushered another man into Hansel's office. Aya had seen him before. He sometimes came for lunch. Today, his face was gray and frightened. The door to the office closed. Aya continued cooking, but her ears were alert. First, silence. Then muffled voices. Hansel's voice, even and calm as always. Then another voice, louder, breaking into a shout. Then a sound, dull, heavy, like a sack falling. Then another. Aya freezes, the knife frozen in her hand, her heart pounding somewhere in her throat. There are no more screams from behind the door. Only Hansel's quiet, distinct voice. He's saying something, too quiet to make out. A few minutes later, the door opens. Two men emerge, leading the man between them. He walks alone, but his head is bowed. He doesn't look around. Aya notices a dark, wet stain on his white shirt near the shoulder. It's growing quickly. She turns away, feeling sick. Her hands are shaking. She hears them leave. The house is silent again. Hansel leaves the office. He adjusts the cuff of his shirt. His face is calm. He sees her in the kitchen, pale, pressed against the counter. Their gazes meet. There's no anger in his eyes, no remorse. There's only a tired clarity. He sees her horror. He understands that she's heard everything. She's understood everything. He says nothing. He doesn't explain. He just looks at her for a long, heavy second, and then turns and walks deeper into the house. Aya sinks into a chair. She's cold. The world beyond the walls of this perfect kitchen is cruel and terrifying, and the man she's playing her dangerous game with is part of it. He can do this. Coldly and silently, she must run. Now, but she doesn't move, because she's too involved. She thinks about his tired eyes at the window, about his rare questions in the kitchen, about how she's already added mafiaboss to his lunch today. She's crossed the line, and there's no turning back. Fear and disgust war inside her with something else, with the attachment she's cultivated herself. She remains sitting, listening to the silence that now seems loud. Days pass after that incident. Hansel behaves as usual, quiet, reserved. But one evening when he comes into the kitchen, he looks especially exhausted. His eyes are sunken. The shadow of his stubble is darker than usual. Aya serves him dinner. He eats slowly, with almost no appetite. Then he pushes his plate away and looks at her. "I don't sleep well," he says suddenly. It's not a complaint. It's a statement of fact. Aya is silent, unsure of how to respond. "But when I eat here, after your food, there's silence in my head. Not for long, but it's the only thing that works." He says this, looking somewhere past her, as if admitting something to himself. This is the most personal thing he has ever said, Aya suggests, her voice trembling. He shakes his head. "No, just this. Your food!" He gets up and leaves, leaving her alone with this terrible phrase. Just this. Your food. He talks about food laced with mafiaboss. He's become dependent on it, on her lies. That evening, Aya sits in the kitchen for a long time. A small leather pouch lies on the table in front of her. She looks at it. He wants peace. He found it only here. What if she gave him more? What if she truly helped him? Maybe then he would become calmer. kinder. Maybe then that cold, cruel world would be left behind. She knows it's an excuse. She knows she's playing with fire. But his words, the only thing that works, ring in her head. He needs this, and she needs him to continue to need her. Her hand reaches for the pouch. This time she takes not a pinch, but two. Her heart pounds with fear and determination. She crosses another line. If before she had hoped, now she is actively dragging him along with her into this illusion. The dangerous closeness has become even more dangerous. Now she fears not only him, but also what she is becoming. One day, he comes into the kitchen. Not for dinner. He watches her whisk something in a bowl. She tells him about a failed dessert experiment at culinary school, how everything turned into a sticky mess. She waves her hands, laughing at herself. Andy smiles. Not just a slight movement of his lips, but a real, living smile. It reaches his eyes, making them less sharp, warmer. It lasts only a moment. But Aya freezes when she sees it. Her heart sinks into her heels, and then soars somewhere into her throat. "It sounds like you had an interesting teacher," he says, and there's a hint of that smile in his voice, a slight chuckle. He turns and walks away, leaving her alone with her heart pounding. She sinks into a chair, feeling dizzy. It's working. He smiled at her because of her stupid story. All her doubts, all her shame, recede before this bright, hot feeling of victory. She touched him, melted the ice. She feels like the way is open. But Hansel is a man who survived because he reads people better than books, and now something clicks in his head. Too many coincidences. When he gets a headache after a tough negotiation, she accidentally prepares something soothing. When he's particularly tense, her tea is just what he needs. She appears at the door just when he's feeling lonely in his office. And her anxious attention to his mood is as if she senses his state through the walls. He thinks about her food, about the unusual warm taste that has now become familiar, about the silence that falls in his head afterward. At first, he thought it was just good cooking, but now he sees a pattern. Too perfect. One evening, he sits in his office, staring at the empty soup bowl. His face turns stony. No cook, even the most talented, can so accurately divine unspoken desires. Unless she knows something no one else should know, or uses something, the thought seems wild. But his world is built on wild yet accurate conjectures. He remembers her frightened eyes when she confessed to the spice for sleep. "Mafiaboss," she called it. He dismissed it then. Now this detail returns, taking on a new, disturbing meaning. He calls her during the day. He speaks calmly and simply. "I need to go away. For 2 days. I have an evening flight. Prepare something light before I leave." Aya nods, trying to hide her disappointment. 2 days without him, without their evening conversations. "Okay, have a safe trip," she says. He watches her face. He sees a slight sadness. Is it genuine? Or is she upset that she won't be able to add her spice for 2 days? He doesn't show his thoughts. He simply nods. He does indeed leave the house with a small sum of money. A car takes him away. But an hour later, he returns through a secret entrance in the building. He goes into a small room next to his bedroom. There's a monitor there. It shows a view of the kitchen. The camera is hidden in a ventilation unit. He's never used it before, never needed it. He sits down in a chair. Aya is in the kitchen. She's cooking. Everything is as usual. He watches her move, focused on chopping vegetables. An hour passes. She finishes, puts everything away. It seems she's going to bed. Hansel is about to turn off the screen, dismissing his suspicions as foolish, but then he sees movement. The kitchen door opens quietly. Aya enters. She's no longer in her work clothes, but in home clothes. She looks around, even though she knows no one is home. Her movements are quick, nervous. He leans closer to the screen. Aya goes to her locker. She takes out not a bag of cereal or tea, but a small leather pouch on a drawstring. That very one. She holds it as if it were something fragile and dangerous. Hansel freezes. His face is expressionless, but his fingers grip the armrests of his chair. She opens the bag. She scoops up some dark powder with a spoon. Then she goes to the stove, where there's a small saucepan, the one he knows she uses to cook just for him, his personal portion. She adds the powder and stirs. Then she stands and looks at the saucepan, as if hypnotized. On her face, he sees a strange mixture, hope, fear, and an enormous, oppressive guilt. She turns off the heat, covers the pot with a lid. Then she puts the bag back in the cupboard, looks around once more, and quietly leaves. The kitchen is empty again. Only steam rises quietly from under the lid of the pot containing his food. Hansel leans back in his chair. The room is quiet. There's no anger or surprise on his face. There's only cold, crystalline clarity. His worst suspicions have been confirmed. He trusted her with his peace, and yet she systematically deceived him. She laced his food with something foreign, something that controlled his mood, his feelings. He thinks about his smile, about his admission that only her food brings silence. His stomach clenches with disgust, not at the food, at himself, at the fact that he allowed this to happen. He sits in the darkness for a long time. Then he gets up. A plan, cold and precise, is already forming in his head. The game is just beginning, but now he sets the rules. Hansel decides to act openly. He wants to see everything with his own eyes, without a screen. The next day, he arranges everything so that he can catch her at the right moment. Soy-based. She nods and returns to the kitchen. He waits 10 minutes, then quietly walks in. The kitchen door is ajar. He stops in the doorway, an invisible shadow. Aya stands at the counter. In front of her is his small porcelain gravy boat. Her leather pouch lies next to it. She opens it and peers inside again, her expression now familiar with alarm. Her movements are quick, furtive. She glances over her shoulder, but doesn't notice him in the dim hallway. He watches her fingers take a pinch of the dark powder. He watches her tremble. He watches the pinch fall into the sauce. She picks up a spoon and stirs it quickly. Her face at that moment is a mixture of fear and hope. She looks like someone performing a ritual she no longer believes in, but is afraid to stop. Hansel takes a step back. Then, with deliberately loud steps, he enters the kitchen. Aya flinches as if caught in the act. She nearly drops her spoon. Her eyes are wide and panicked. It's almost ready, she mutters, shielding the gravy boat with her body. He looks at her. His gaze is heavy and unreadable. He sees how she blushes, how she can't hold his gaze. Okay, he says finally. His voice is even as ice. He notices that the bag is gone from the table, tucked into the pocket of her apron. He turns and walks away, leaving her alone with a lump of terror in her throat. He doesn't touch that sauce at dinner. He says he's lost his appetite. Aya takes the untouched dish, her hands freezing. She senses something is wrong, that he knows something. Late in the evening, when the house is quiet, Hansel takes action. He goes down to the kitchen. It's spotlessly clean. He goes to the trash can. Inside, among the scraps, he finds what he's looking for, a paper coffee filter wrapped in the remains of that sauce. She poured it out, but not all the way. He carefully takes the package. Then he finds the same leather pouch in her cupboard, in a box of tea. It still contains powder. He takes a pinch and places it in a separate small bag. The next morning, he calls a man named Min. He once worked for a large pharmaceutical company and now solves complex problems for Hansel, problems that require specialized knowledge. Hansel hands him both samples, the packet of sauce and the packet of powder. I need a full analysis. What is it? Where is it from? And most importantly, what effect does it have on a person, on the psyche? Min nods silently. He's not used to asking unnecessary questions. 3 days pass. Min comes with a report. They are sitting in Hansel's office. A plant-based substance, a complex composition. The base is extracts from 2 rare plants. One grows in the Horn of Africa, the other in Southeast Asia. The mixture itself is non-toxic. Hansel listens silently, his fingers steepled in front of his face. And what does she do? His voice is quiet. It's complicated. It's not a drug in the usual sense. It's powerful. It's an aphrodisiac, but not just a physical one. It works on a psychological level. When taken in small doses over a long period of time, it gently stimulates the areas of the brain responsible for attachment, trust, and a sense of security. It can induce a state of calm and relieve anxiety. Essentially, it creates a chemical illusion of well-being and a connection with the source of this substance. In this case, with food, and therefore with the person who prepares it. Silence falls over the office. Hansel doesn't move. Side effects, he asks finally. If you stop suddenly, anxiety, irritability, and a feeling of emptiness are possible. That is, psychological withdrawal. But the most interesting thing, Min hesitates slightly. In my sources, in old texts, there are mentions of such mixtures. They say that, if true, sincere feelings don't develop by the end of the course. The artificially created bond breaks, leaving both parties in a void. It's like a bridge that collapses if the other side doesn't come to meet you. Hansel slowly leans back in his chair. He looks at the ceiling. Now, everything is clear. Every detail falls into place. His inexplicable calm after her meal, his growing craving for her company, his smile. None of this was his. It was the effect of the powder. She wasn't trying to poison him. She was trying to bind him to herself, to create the illusion of feelings. A black, cold wave rises in his chest. This isn't just a deception. This is an invasion. This is a manipulation of his very will, his feelings. This is worse than an attempt on his life. This is an attack on his freedom. He thanks Ming and lets him go. He remains alone. He sits in the darkness, and the rage within him crystallizes into something hard and sharp. But along with the rage comes another feeling, curiosity. Why? Out of fear? Out of self-interest? Or Out of that same foolish, naive hope spoken of in the old texts, he decides not to act rashly. Now that he knows the rules of the game, he can turn it around. He wants to understand what drives her, and then he will show her what it means to play with his mind. Hansel's rage boils like an underground spring. He clenches his fist until his knuckles turn white. Betrayal. Stupid, naive, but betrayal nonetheless. She's messed with his plate, with his head. She's toyed with his emotions like seasoning. In his world, such things are highly punishing. The thought of swift and precise execution is clear and cold. But right there, alongside the anger, another question arises. Why? He considers possible motives. Espionage? Too complicated and ineffective. Sabotage? The substance isn't poisonous. Blackmail? She didn't demand anything. He remembers her face on the surveillance screen. Hope, fear, and guilt. He remembers her frightened eyes when he caught her at the gravy boat. There was no malice in them. There was the panic of a trapped child. And then it dawns on him. Min said, "It creates the illusion of connection." The old texts said, "If true feelings don't develop," he slowly unclenches his fist. The absurdity and scale of this insolence strikes him. She was trying to make him love her, or at least feel affection, not out of self-interest, not out of fear, out of, what, loneliness, foolish hope? This motive is so alien to his world, so irrational, that his rage momentarily recedes, giving way to stunned interest. Who is this girl, risking everything to gain attention through spices and old recipes? It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's interesting. Hansel makes a decision. Immediate reprisal is too easy, too quick. He wants to understand, and he wants complete control. Now he has knowledge. It's his weapon. The next day, he comes into the kitchen, not in the evening, but in the afternoon. Aya shudders when she sees him. She's still terrified of that heavy gaze. "We're having a guest for dinner tonight," he says casually. "Cook something special. I'll help you choose the wine." She looks at him, not believing her ears. He's talking about wine, as if nothing had happened. "Okay," she breathes. He doesn't leave. He stands next to her while she chops vegetables. He asks her opinion on the flavor combinations. He listens attentively to her answers. Then he says, "Your instincts are rarely wrong," and he leaves. That evening, he introduces her to his guest not as the cook, but as Aya, who is in charge of my table. It's subtle, but it makes a big difference. Aya feels embarrassed and important. This is how his game begins. He pays more attention to her. He asks about her day. Sometimes he asks her to make coffee and lingers in the kitchen to drink it with her. He tells her something neutral about his affairs, of course nothing important. He creates the illusion of closeness, but now it's his illusion. He controls her every step, every phrase. He watches her reactions like a scientist watches a test subject. Aya doesn't understand what's happening. After that terrible day, she expected anger, dismissal, anything. But instead, Hansel has become closer, warmer. He seeks her company. He trusts her to choose the dishes for important meetings. His gaze, when he looks at her, is no longer so icy. There is interest in it, almost tenderness. She attributes it all to mafiaboss. It works, more powerfully than she could have dreamed. Grandma was right. The mixture opens his heart. The feeling of guilt recedes under the onslaught of joy and hope. If it works, if it makes him feel good, then she's doing the right thing. She's helping him. She sees how he becomes calmer, smiles more often, and she herself is changing. Before, she added the spice out of fear and despair. Now she does it with trepidation and a strange tenderness. Each time she adds the powder, she whispers, "May he be happy. May he find peace." She begins to believe it's a spell, not a trick. And the more affection he shows, unaware that it's just his cold game, the more she truly falls in love with him, without the help of spices. She falls in love with the man who sits with her in the kitchen and listens to her stories. She sees his intelligence, his fatigue, his rare, genuine smiles. She thinks it's the result of mafiaboss, but it's her own real feeling. She finds herself in a vicious circle, his false attention, her true love in return, her faith in the power of the spice, her new doses, his apparent affection. She's trapped, and the worst part is, she's happy in it. She's afraid that if she stops, everything will disappear, and he'll become that cold silhouette by the window again. And she can't let that happen, for his sake and for her own. He invites her to a restaurant, not to his home, to a quiet, expensive place with private rooms. Aya puts on her best dress. She is excited and happy. It's a sign, she thinks, an official sign of his interest. But over dinner, everything changes. The questions he asks seem simple, but they feel different. "Why did you leave home, Aya?" he asks, adjusting his napkin. "You wanted to study, to become a chef," she replies. "Do you have many friends there? Who can you tell about your current job?" The question hangs in the air. She has no friends here. She has no one to tell. She feels stung. No, no one. Lonely, he states, and it's not a question but a statement. His eyes study her reaction. Sometimes, she admits, he asks about her family, about her grandmother, about her faith in old recipes. Do you believe that food can change something in a person? Not just the body, but also feelings? His voice is neutral, but there is a steel in it. Aya pauses. A glass of water at her lips. Her heart beats faster. I think good food can improve your mood, provide comfort, or create a dependency on that comfort, he says slowly, cutting into a piece of meat. He doesn't look at her. Dinner turns into an interrogation, disguised as small talk. He probes the limits of her loneliness, her naivety, her need for warmth. Every answer she gives confirms his suspicions. She's not an enemy from another clan. She's a lonely girl who committed a foolish act out of despair. His anger is mixed with a strange understanding. It doesn't excuse her, but it explains. The next morning, Kitty Tayek comes to see him, his right-hand man, a man who solves problems quietly and efficiently. His face is always serious, but now it's especially stern. It's about the cook, he begins without preamble. Hansel looks up at him. What about her? People see. You've started spending a lot of time with her. She's become important. It's a weakness. They can take advantage of her. I'm in control, Hansel says calmly. Control? Kitek frowns. She cooks your food every day. You let her in too close. I checked her background. Nothing special. But that's the problem. She's like a blank slate. You can write anything on a slate like that, or you can believe in its purity and not notice the poison beneath the surface. Hansel knows Kitek is right. By their rules, this is pure madness. But he can't explain to Kitek about mafiaboss, about his experiment, about his strange interest in motives. I appreciate your concern, but this is my business, he says finally. Kitek looks at him for a long moment, then nods sharply. As you say. But my eyes will be open. He leaves, leaving Hansel with a sour taste in his mouth. His ally sees the danger, so the danger is real, but stopping now would mean admitting defeat. And oddly enough, he doesn't know everything about it yet. He wants to see it through to the end. He returns home late. The day has been difficult, full of pressure and threats. The effect of the evening meal, spiced with its flavor, washes over him like a wave. Usually, it's calm. Today, it's something different. Weakness, a need for understanding. He finds her in the kitchen. She's reading a book about spices. Aya, he says, and his voice sounds tired. Not like usual. She jumps up immediately. She sees his face. Did something happen? He sits down silently on a stool. He looks at his hands. When I was 10, he begins unexpectedly, my father put me in the car, in the middle of the night. We drove for a long time. He didn't say anything. Hansel's voice is even, but there's a void in it. Aya freezes, afraid to move. He brought me to a vacant lot. There was a man there, tied up. My father gave me a gun. He said, this man has betrayed us. A traitor is a disease. If it's not removed, it will kill the whole family. You are my son. You must be strong. The kitchen is so silent you can hear the refrigerator humming. I couldn't do it. I cried. I was shaking. My father looked at me. He didn't scold me. He was just disappointed. Then he did what needed to be done. And then he said, remember this lesson. The world doesn't forgive weakness. Any feeling other than loyalty to family is weakness. It makes you vulnerable. Forget about it. Hansel looks up at her. There's no familiar iciness in them. Only a tired, childish pain, lingering for decades. I've since forgotten, or tried to forget, until he doesn't finish. Aya doesn't realize the tears streaming down her cheeks. She sees before her not a menacing boss, but a little boy in a dark car who had to kill all his warmth to survive. Her heart breaks with pain for him, with horror at such a childhood. Forgive me, she whispers, though she doesn't know what she's apologizing for. For his world being like this? For her invading his soul with her deception? He sees her tears, and for him, it's a strange revelation. No one ever cried for that boy. No one. Something tightens in his chest. Is it the effect of the spice? Or something else? Breaking through years of prohibition? He doesn't know. He stands up. His face becomes a mask again. But inside, everything is turned upside down. Forget what I said, he croaks, and quickly walks away, leaving Aya alone with a wet face and horror in her soul. She now knows the price of his coldness, and it seems to her that her deception is the most terrible thing she could do to such a man. But she can no longer stop. It's evening after that difficult night. The tension between them hangs in the air, thick and heavy. Aya prepares dinner, her hands shaking slightly. She still sees that boy before her eyes. She wants to go over, hug Hansel, say something, but she's afraid. He comes into the kitchen later than usual. He doesn't say a word. He comes so close to her that she feels the warmth of his body. His face is serious, his eyes a dark storm. "You were crying," he says quietly. His voice is hoarse. She can't answer. She only nods. He looks at her lips, then lifts his gaze to her eyes and kisses her. Suddenly and powerfully, there's a passion in this kiss, pent up over months of silence and observation. But there's something else too, a cold, searching interest, as if he's testing not only hers, but his own feelings as well. What is he capable of under the influence of all this? It's important for him to understand. Aya is lost in this kiss. For her, it's a miracle, the culmination of all her hopes. She sees nothing but this long-awaited intimacy. She wraps her arms around his neck, responds to him, forgetting everything in the world, the deception, his past, the terrible world beyond the walls. She believes this is the true end of her journey. He has finally seen her. A few days later, Aya notices with horror that the bag of mafiaboss is almost empty. Her grandmother's words come flooding back to her. If the heart doesn't truly open up by the end of the journey, the connection will be broken. Panic grips her throat. She thinks everything is going well. He kissed her. He softened. But is that enough? Has his heart truly opened? She's not sure. She's afraid of losing everything she's gained. The old notes she rereads at night say, "To complete the journey, a final, most powerful dose is needed, twice as much as usual. This will strengthen the bond." Or reveal its falsity. She sits on her bed, staring at the pitiful remnants of dark powder in her palm. This is all that's left. Her entire foolish, desperate plan fits into this tiny pile. If this doesn't work, it's all over. He'll distance himself, or learn the truth, or feel that emptiness. She makes a decision. Tomorrow, at dinner, she will add everything that is left, and find out whether it was magic or just self-delusion. It's evening. Aya is in the kitchen. She's cooking his favorite dish, beef stew. Her heart is pounding so loudly, she thinks she can hear it throughout the house. She's already added today's usual dose of mafiaboss to the food. But in her apron pocket lies a small bag containing the last few grains. She looks around. The kitchen is empty. Silence. She takes out the bag, unties it, pour the contents onto a small spoon. It's so little powder, but to her it's a mountain. Her hand is shaking. She brings the spoon to the pan. At this moment, she feels that she is not alone. She slowly turns her head. Hansel stands in the doorway, in the dim light of the hallway. He doesn't move. He just watches. His face is hidden in shadow, but she can see the hard outline of his cheek, his arms crossed over his chest. He's watching. He saw everything. How she took out the bag, how she poured out the last of it, how she froze with the spoon over his food. Time stands still. Aya can't move. The spoon with the last dose of mafiaboss hangs frozen in midair. His silent gaze is heavier than any scream. He knows everything. He saw her entire pathetic, secret ritual, from beginning to end. She stands there, caught red-handed, waiting for what will happen next, waiting for the anger, waiting for the end. But he doesn't move. He simply watches her hand tremble. And in the silence, a silent question rings out. What will she do now? Put that spoon in the pot, knowing he's watching? Or stop? The spoon froze in midair. The powder was about to fall into the pan. "What is it, Aya?" His voice is quiet. It sounds even, cold, and inexorable, like a blade drawn across glass. He steps out of the shadows into the kitchen light. In his hand, clutched between his fingers, dangles that same small leather pouch. Empty. He saw everything. And he had already found the hiding place. The spoon slips from her fingers and clatters to the floor. Dark powder scatters across the white tiles in a stain. Aya recoils from it as if from fire. She looks at the bag in his hand, then at his face. Her own face is a mask of pure horror. It's not what you think," she begins, her voice trembling betrayingly. "I think it's a spice, a special one. That same mafiaboss. You've been slipping it into my food for a long time." He says this calmly, listing the facts. Each word hits like a whip. "Tell me, am I wrong?" She can't lie. Not when he looks at her with those eyes. There's not even anger in them. There's only chilling disappointment and interest, like an insect under a microscope. She opens her mouth, but no sound comes out. She can only shake her head silently. "No, you're not mistaken." "Why?" is the only word he utters next. It hangs in the air, heavy and simple. Panic grips her throat. Tears well up in her eyes and everything blurs. She wants to find a good excuse, a clever explanation, but all she can think of is the truth, naked and pathetic. "I was lonely," she whispers. "And you were lonely. I saw it. You were standing by the window, and you looked like you were in pain. And then it became important to me that you looked at me, not as a cook, but as," she gasps, unable to finish. "And you thought the spices from Grandma's fairy tale would help?" His tone is almost mocking, but there's no humor in it, only bitterness. "It's not a fairy tale," she suddenly cries out, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It works! I saw it! You became different! You smiled! You talked to me!" She sees his face distort, not with anger, with some other deeper emotion. "You think it's the powder?" He shakes his head slowly. "You think my smile, my words, are the chemicals in the bag?" "I don't know," she sobs. "I didn't know what else to do. I was so lonely and so stupid, and I fell in love with you, and you didn't even notice I existed." The last words hang in the echoing silence of the kitchen, a confession torn from fear and despair. She said it. She confessed everything, the deception, the stupidity, the feelings. Now she has nothing. Hansel looks at her, at this girl, tears smeared across her face and shaking as if in a fever. The rage inside him is cold and quiet, but it's not directed at her, not all of it. He moves closer, not to strike, so that his words can be heard clearly. "Do you know what the most valuable thing I have?" he asks quietly. "Not money, not power, trust. In my world, it's almost non-existent. It can't be bought. It can only be earned, or given as a gift." Like a fool, he looks straight into her wet eyes. "I let you into my home, to my food. I told you things I tell no one else. I began to trust the silence I found here. And this," he holds up the empty bag. "It wasn't me. It wasn't you. It was a lie. You took my trust and trampled on it. You made me a guinea pig in your stupid game of love." Every word cuts like a knife because it's true. He's not threatening. He's stating a fact, and that hurts more than any threat. "Have you thought about the consequences? About what will happen when this ends? Like in your grandmother's fairy tales? Emptiness? Have you thought about what will happen to you? To me?" He turns away, as if he can't bear to look at her anymore. His shoulders tense. "You stole from me the right to choose. To feel something or not to feel it. You decided for me. That comes at a very high price in my world, Aya." He turns to face her one last time. His face is a mask again, but now there's only ice in his eyes. "But death is too easy for you. Too easy. You will pay a different price. You will understand what you have done." He's not kicking her out. He's not doing anything bad to her in the traditional sense. He's simply changing the rules. The next day, a different cook arrives. An older man. He prepares simple, bland food. Aya hears sounds from the kitchen, the clatter of a knife, the sizzle of butter, and realizes she's barred from the kitchen. They show her her new room. It's in a different wing of the house, far from the kitchen and his private quarters. The room is nice, even beautiful. It has everything: a bed, a sofa, a TV, books, even a small refrigerator with water and fruit. It's a high-class prison, but still, it's a prison. She's told she can move around the house except for the kitchen, his office, and his floor. They don't watch her every move, but she knows everyone is watching. His people, the cameras, the walls. The worst thing is, he disappears. She doesn't see him, doesn't hear his footsteps, doesn't feel his presence in the house. He's become a ghost. She walks through beautiful, empty rooms, and loneliness eats her up from the inside. She thinks about his words, about the price of deception. Now she understands. The price is being cut off from everything that has become important to her. From work, from her little world in the kitchen, from him. She sits in a gilded cage and slowly goes mad from silence and guilt. Hansel. She stops eating that food. The last one she prepared with her usual dose of mafiaboss. The effect should last for a few more days, according to her calculations. And he feels it. At first, it's just irritability. Then anxiety, creeping from within like a cold fog. Then emptiness sets in. He sits in his office after a long, hard day and realizes there's nothing inside. None of the peace he'd come to take for granted. None of the quiet warmth that used to warm him from within after dinner. There's only the familiar tension, fatigue, and a huge, gaping hole, as if a piece of his soul had been ripped out, or as if the lights had been turned off in the only room that felt remotely cozy. He thinks about her words. It works. You've become different. And he realizes she was right. The spice was working. It was changing his state, giving him the illusion of peace. And he, cold and calculating Hansel, had allowed this illusion to become necessary. He had become dependent on it, like a weakling. But with the rage comes another question. How much of what he felt for her was real? His interest in her stories, his compassion for her loneliness, his admission that only her food brought silence. Was it a lie? Or was there a grain of truth in it, enhanced by the spice? He doesn't know the answer. And this uncertainty angers him even more. He no longer trusts his own feelings. She took that away from him, too. Take arrives with disturbing news. His face is grim. They've become more active. They're making forays into our outskirts, testing our strength. Rumors are circulating. What rumors? Hansel asks, although he already suspects that you're distracted, that you've become weak, that you're not as strong as before. They can sense it. Hansel understands. His instability, this inner emptiness and irritability, are affecting his affairs. He's slow to make decisions. His reactions are less precise. His men see it, and his enemies see it. They smell blood in the water. Not real blood, but vulnerability. They think he lost his grip because of the woman in the kitchen. They don't know about mafiaboss, but they sense the consequences. They're getting ready for a big attack, Tyke says. Soon. They want to see if you're ready for a real fight, or if your mind is elsewhere. This is war, a quiet one, for now, but a war nonetheless. And it began because of his weakness, because he allowed a girl with a bag of spices to get into his head and soul. Now, he needs to pull himself together, forget the emptiness inside, forget about it. Show everyone that he is still as strong and ruthless as ever. Otherwise, his world will collapse. He gives Tyke short, stern instructions. His voice is steely again, his eyes cold. But inside, there's still that emptiness. And he knows his enemies are right. He's vulnerable. And the price of that vulnerability could be very high for everyone who depends on him, including the one sitting in her room in the other wing, unaware of the storms her deception has unleashed. The attack comes at night. Muffled bangs, screams, the sound of breaking glass. The house, usually so quiet, turns into hell. Aya wakes to the noise. She hears running, muffled commands. She sits on the bed, hugging her knees, trembling with fear. She knows it's because of him, because of his weakness. No one comes to her. Everyone has forgotten about the captive. She has a choice: hide here, in her room, or she doesn't know which or. She jumps up and presses herself against the wall by the door. The silence outside gives way to new sounds, heavy breathing, the shuffling of feet, then a groan. Close, right outside her door. She carefully opens the door. In the dim hallway, leaning against the wall, sits Tyke. His face is pale. He clasps his other arm above the elbow with one hand. Dark liquid seeps through his fingers and drips onto the floor. He looks up at her. There's pain, anger, and surprise in his eyes. "Get out," he croaks, "while you still can." Aya doesn't move. She looks at the wound. She's seen something like this before, as a child, in a troubled neighborhood. Her grandmother showed her how to stop the bleeding using household items, herbs that were always in the house. She looks around. There's nothing in her room, but she remembers a small potted plant in the adjoining living room, an aloe, and a clean towel in the bathroom. Without thinking, she runs. She returns with a plant and a towel. Tyke looks at her with distrust, but is already too weak to resist. "This will help," she says, breaking open a thick aloe leaf. The sticky gel mixes with the blood. She quickly but carefully applies it to the wound and wraps it tightly with a towel, applying pressure. She does everything as her grandmother taught her, confidently, without panic. The blood gradually stops flowing so heavily. Tyke's breathing becomes a little more even. He looks at her hands, covered in his blood, then at her face. At that moment, Hansel appears at the end of the corridor. He holds a gun. He looks collected and cold, but his eyes gleam with the memory of the nightmare that just ended. He sees a picture, his right hand, wounded, and Ayu, holding his hand in her bloodied palms. He comes closer. He looks at the bandage, at the aloe, at her focused, frightened face. "She stopped the bleeding," Tyke croaks. "She knows how." Hansol silently squats down next to her. He checks the bandage. Indeed, it's homemade, but it's done correctly. He looks at Aya. She looks away, afraid to see the anger in his eyes. "Why?" he asks quietly. "You could have run away. Or just closed the door." She can't find the words right away. Then she whispers, looking at her red hands, "Because he's your friend, and because, it would be wrong to leave him." At that moment, something clicked in Hansel's head. She risked herself, stepped into a dangerous corridor. She used knowledge that wasn't about deception, but about helping. She saved Tyke, not for profit, not out of fear, because it would have been wrong. Her heart was real, foolish, naive, confused, but real. Her methods were terrible, but the motive was the same as hers now. Not to hurt, to help. This knowledge hits him harder than anger. He feels some of his rage melt away, giving way to a heavy, complex understanding. He doesn't say, "I forgive," but he nods. Once, briefly, and this nod is not forgiveness. It is an acknowledgement of her actions, her choices. His duty to her has changed now. When all is quiet, when the wounded are taken away, and only an oppressive silence remains in the house, he finds her. She is sitting in the small guest room, still in her soiled clothes, staring into space. He sits down opposite. There is no food between them, no spices, only the air, heavy with the unspoken. "I was furious," he begins, the first one. His voice is quiet, without its previous ice. "Not because of the spice, because you decided for me. You took my feelings and falsified them. After what I told you, it was like spitting in my face. You made me doubt everything I felt, even the things that could have been real." Aya listens, her eyes downcast. Tears well up again, but she holds them back. "I know," she says hoarsely. "I can't fix it. I'd give anything to turn back time. Not out of fear, but because I saw the pain in your eyes. And it's the most terrible thing I've ever done." She looks up at him, her eyes full of tears and sincerity. "I fell in love with you for real, not because of mafiaboss. It happened somewhere in the middle. When you listened to my stories, when you shared your silence with me, I fell in love with the person I saw behind the mask, and I ruined everything trying to make that person love me back. I ruined what little we had. I'm so sorry." She doesn't ask for forgiveness. She simply speaks the truth, the one that grew up without any magic. Hansel looks at her. He feels the emptiness inside him left by mafiaboss. But now, listening to her, he understands that in this emptiness there might be room for something else, for something complicated, damaged, but honest. He doesn't know what to do with it, but he knows the cat and mouse game is over. Now there are only the two of them, and the truth between them. Bitter, uncomfortable, but real. He's silent for a long time after her words. The hum in the house has died down, but the tension between them still hangs like fog after rain. "A new deal," he says finally, and the words sound unfamiliar to his own ears. He's not used to suggesting, he's used to dictating. But this isn't a diktat. You can leave. Today. You'll get money. You can start over, wherever you want, without consequences. Aya looks at him, disbelieving. This is the way out. Pure and simple. Run away from this whole nightmare, from her guilt, from his icy eyes that now saw right through her. Or, he pauses, choosing his words, or you can stay, but not as a cook, and not as a prisoner. Staying will be harder. You'll be here, but everything will be different. There will be no bags, no secrets, no dinner rituals. There will be conversations, true ones, sometimes unpleasant ones, and I can't promise that I'll be able to forget, or that we'll be able to something. I don't even know how much of what I felt was me, and how much was that powder. I need time to figure it out, perhaps a long time, and you'll have to live with it, with my doubts, with my rage, which may yet return. You'll be here, but you'll be alone while I sort through this chaos. He looks at her, letting her know the weight of this second choice. This isn't a happy ending. This is hard work and risk of getting hurt again. "Why?" she whispers. "Why are you giving me this choice? Because you stayed, because you helped Kitek, because..." He searches for the words. "Because I want to believe that the person who did this is real, and the person who slipped the powder was scared and alone, and I now have a way to tell the difference. Just by watching, without anyone else's help." He gets up. "You have until the morning. Decide." He leaves, leaving her alone with the most difficult decision of her life. Run for freedom, but with the burden of guilt and a broken heart. Or stay in a place that has become both a prison and a home, next to the man she loves, fears, and hurt, and accept that he may never look at her with warmth again. Aya doesn't sleep all night. She paces the room that was her cage. She remembers every look he gave her, cold, interested, angry, tired, warm, or was it just her imagination? She thinks of the emptiness in his eyes when he spoke of the price of deception. She thinks of his hand holding out a choice to her. By morning, she has no clear answer, only a feeling that running away would leave the wound open, for him and for herself. It will be easier, but it will be running away, and she's had enough of running, from her past, from loneliness. And now, even knowing all the pain she's caused, she doesn't want to run away from him. She wants to earn, not his love, his respect, and her own. As the first rays of sun fall into the room, she takes a shower, washing the caked blood and dust of the nightmare from her hands. She puts on clean, simple clothes. She doesn't go to him, she goes to the kitchen. A new chef is already in charge there. He looks at her with surprise and confusion. "Excuse me," Aya says quietly but firmly. "I need a little space and a few ingredients, just for today." The cook, warned apparently by Kitek or Hansel himself, nods after a pause and steps aside, watching. Aya doesn't cook anything complicated, nothing that reminds her of the past. She takes rice, fresh eggs, a few green onions, sauce, Simple, honest ingredients. She cooks the rice, makes a simple omelet, twaji giran, a dish that doesn't hide its flavor with spices. It can't be spoiled or improved by magic. It's either delicious or it's not. It's either prepared with care or it isn't. She spoons a fluffy omelet onto a plate of rice, sprinkles it with finely chopped onion, nothing extra. She doesn't know if he'll come. She doesn't know if he'll want to eat what she's cooked, but she does it for him and for herself. An act of pure, vulnerable honesty. Hansel knows her decision without even seeing her. He's been informed that she's in the kitchen, that she's cooking. His first impulse is to throw everything away, but he stops himself. This is her answer, her choice. He needs to see it. He goes down to the dining room later than usual. He's prepared for any outcome, an empty table, or a gourmet dish that tries to deceive him again. There's one simple white plate on the table. On it is rice and an omelet. That's all. No side dishes, no complicated sauces. The smell is simple, homey, cozy. Aya stands by the kitchen door. She doesn't look at him. She looks at her plate. She's pale but calm. He sits down, looks at the food. This isn't what she's cooked for him before. This is something different, something simple. He picks up a spoon, breaks a piece of the omelet, tastes it. The taste is honest. Eggs, a little salt, a slight sweetness from the soy sauce. The rice is cooked just right, fluffy. Nothing special, but that's what makes it special. Nothing superfluous, nothing hidden, just skill and attention. He eats slowly. He waits, unconsciously, for that warm feeling, that peace. It's not there. There's only the taste of the food and silence, but not the heavy, oppressive silence of the last few days. Something different, purer, empty, but not hostile. He finishes his meal, pushes his plate away, looks up at her. She's still looking at the plate, as if awaiting a verdict. Aya, he says. She startles and looks up at him. Come here! She takes a few hesitant steps, stopping at a respectful distance. Why this dish? He asks. Because it can't be faked, she answers quietly. Its taste depends only on the quality of the ingredients and the hands that prepare it. There are no secret ingredients. He nods, silently. Then he says, it was fair. One word. But for Aya, it speaks louder than any praise. Her eyes water, but she doesn't cry. She simply looks at him. You're staying, he states. That's not a question. Yes, if you allow it. Do you understand the rules? Yes. No secrets. No magic, just the truth, no matter how difficult it may be. He looks at her face. He sees determination. He sees fear. He sees hope. And he sees weariness, the same weariness he feels. They are both exhausted by this war with each other. He stands up, walks toward her, not close, but closer than he's been in days. He looks into her eyes, searching for signs of deception, cunning. He sees only vulnerability and resilience. I don't know what will happen next, he says honestly. I don't know if I'll ever be able to completely trust you, or my feelings. It will take time, maybe a lot. I know, she whispers. I'm ready to wait. And deserve, not deserve, he corrects. Prove, every day, with words and with deeds. Like today, he extends his hand, not to hug, not to touch her face. He extends his hand to shake, as if concluding the most important contract of his life. A contract not about business, but about a fragile, damaged, but possible truth. Aya looks at his hand, then, slowly, carefully, she places hers in his. Her fingers are cold. His palm is firm and warm. They remain like this, motionless, for several seconds. This touch is the first in a long time, devoid of lies, spice, and hidden motives. Simply the contact of two people, wounded, confused, but determined to try to find a way through this chaos together. He lets go of her hand. Let's start again, he says. From scratch. She nods, and this time a small, uncertain, but real smile appears on her lips, not from the spice, from hope that seems not to have died even after everything. From scratch, she repeats. From plain rice. He turns to leave, but turns around at the threshold. He looks at the empty plate, then at her. And, Aya, yes? It was delicious, really. He says this without a smile, seriously, but there's no ice in his eyes. There's weariness, caution, and something that could be a beginning, just a beginning. But for the two of them, standing amid the rubble of trust, this beginning was enough. It was honest,